Welcome into Shaping Reality for April 2025. I'm Kimberly Montgomery, and tonight I'm joined with author and consciousness educator Penny Kelly. Penny, how are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world. I know you were at the Ozark Mountains
Oh yeah.
UFO conference, which I can't believe I missed. Tell
Oh
us
yeah.
about that and what else is going on in your life.
Um, there's almost too much to report, and some of it would be absolutely irrelevant for the rest of the world, you know. Um, but I did have such a good time at that conference, and I was thrilled that people remembered me from last year. And a few people even said, "Oh, we only came because we heard you were going to be here." And I was like, "Oh," you know. So I was really thrilled. And then the conference went well, and I see in the UFO movement, and that conference kind of brought it right to a head, that we are moving from a focus on where's your material proof to, maybe we should look at consciousness. And that really, for me, is like, okay, it's about time. So if they invite me back next year, I'm going to talk about consciousness much more directly. So that was good. It was a very good conference. And there were younger people there this year, which I loved.
Yeah.
So,
You know,
yeah.
it's interesting to me, just as someone who's not involved in that community, but I do watch
Yeah.
primarily social media around, the country.
Right.
There's almost such a shift, Penny, in people's perception to really accepting, oh, they're out there, oh, they're flying. There's
Yeah.
much more of, oh yeah, and it's gone from mocking someone who believed in other races, which why wouldn't you? To now just sort of this really mild sort of acceptance.
Hmm.
It's a weird position because people are no longer having what I perceive as a really strong emotional reaction now. It's more of a, yeah,
Uh huh.
when
Kind
it's
of
there.
matter of fact. Yeah. I think one of the great reliefs of my own life is that we can talk about that, because that was something that for me was like, don't talk about that. Don't, you will have zero credibility. And then Dr. Levengood started to pick at that wall, and then a few other people. And, and then and then I found out somebody else in my family had some very unusual experiences. And I thought, oh, okay, so I'm not the only one, but I was still kind of shy about saying anything. So now I think that that's something that we're going to later say, I'm so glad that they're here. I'm so glad that they are ahead of us, that they are a little more conscious, that they're a little more aware. It's kind of like having an older brother or an older sister in the house, and you can kind of, make an ally of them, and do a little better
Yeah.
than than by yourself.
I want to ask you about that, Penny, because I've had some thoughts recently. I follow a few channelers and I've interviewed a lot of channelers and people who've had expanded experiences.
Yeah.
And a concern that's come up for me just recently is that there are a lot of more advanced civilizations. Fortunate for us, we're growing. We're kind of in that awkward preteen stage where we're still making a mess of everything, but we're realizing maybe I need to learn how to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's other civilizations that are much more advanced, maybe not spiritually, but at least technology wise,
Oh yeah.
technologically.
Oh wow.
Um, I do. I am thought. I'm concerned that not every civilization out there is necessarily with having our best interests in mind. It might be their best interest in mind, and
Yeah,
we are a useful tool in order for them to move forward their best interests.
that's true for some.
Yeah.
True. I mean, here's the thing that I think people need to get. That world out there is just like this
Yes.
one, with that whole range of what do they used to call that? Saints and sinners. There's this whole spectrum of people. Some don't want anything to do with us. Some would really like to own us. Some are pretending they own us, and others are saying, come on, grow up. Come on, join the community of advanced consciousness. And so and there's lots more besides just those few. So we have some choices that we have to make, and it's an individual choice, one at a time kind of thing, which I think I hinted at in this last look-see, maybe, said something to the effect of, I did get a message from my people. I was thinking about how we needed to make this change, and we needed leaders, new leaders that were strong and resilient, and they would last for generations and generations, because if they went away, we might fall off the wagon kind of thing. And so it was this, like, oh yeah, we need these new leaders. And that's when first I had this inspiration that said, well, wait a minute, that's still putting all the power out there.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, I got a message from my people who said, because I've been thinking about how did they make the step into higher consciousness. And they said, it's not a giant turning. It's a one person after another, all by themselves at a time, making a decision. And that's how it works. And when you have the courage to make that step and begin acting on that, they then kind of help guide you without getting in your way. And eventually you find or join or their group or their groups, their colony or their team. I'm hoping to be a part of a team. and so it's one of those things where, you know how they talk in the religious circles about not a culling, but almost the same thing, where people just disappear. They get disappeared somehow.
Raptured.
There's a term for that. What's that? Raptured? Okay. So the rapture, if you look at that from a different point of view, it's possible that the quote rapture is a step into other dimensional up. It's a step up into another dimension that is just far enough that you can't really be seen or heard or felt in the dimension that you were just in. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is that you literally get picked up and you're gone. And, you are bodily elsewhere. But all the people who aren't ready for that, they stay right here and they keep right on going and they keep right on reproducing and they keep right on creating all the same kind of crap until it dawns on them one at a time, this doesn't have to be this way. This could be so much better. And they begin to wake up to their own consciousness. And, maybe 3 generations or 6 lifetimes down the road, all of a sudden now they're ready.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there are periods of time when it's really, when you can get a boost from the universe. And the micronova is going to be one of those times where we could get a big boost. And that's why so many people are here. They're hoping to get that boost and to have leadership that says, hold your consciousness and hold your intention and let that energy flow through you and around you and shift you right up, because that energy rewires you. That's a mass Kundalini awakening kind of thing. So
when is the micronova?
We don't really know. I have seen that, and this is just intuitive, in 2027, toward the end of 2027, we are seeing signs in the sun that it's coming. I don't know if it happens then, or I don't know how fast the sun works, but that's a big deal. And so a couple of times I've thought, well, maybe what we're doing is preparing consciousness to be able to leave here with full consciousness and step right into a whole other world. And so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
So
it's exciting on the planet right now.
it is. It
It
is.
is.
Some people they don't want that excitement, but I don't think it's bad.
Well, if you
I
understand
think
it,
what's
it
bad.
helps.
Okay. Say that again.
If, in my opinion, if you understand what's going on, it helps
Oh,
to make it
yes.
easier. If you
Okay.
have no clue what's going on, it would seem very scary and very confusing.
Right. Yeah. And I think for people that are just waking up, it probably would stay kind of scary and confusing. But there's time. There's time to develop. Oh, whoops. Oh, that was a mistake. Hang on a second.
Well,
Okay.
let's jump into the topics that we talked about for this evening from the Look-See. And for those
Okay.
watching, we have a wide range. We're going to touch on health. We're going to touch on fourth dimensional living. We're going to touch on the political, the administration and what they're doing. We're going to touch on culture. And then at the very end, make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to ask Penny a very personal question that she can answer or not. She can say, no, I don't want to, but it's going to be worth it. So stick around for that. And Penny, don't let me forget about the question because sometimes I get a little loopy.
Okay.
The first thing I wanted to address about the Look-See is, and you brought this up, the issue of health. And there's something that is so sad for me to see, and that is the degradation of health as a result of the joy juice. And people are sick everywhere. They've got this, or they've got that, or they've got shingles, or they've got da 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 da. And it's like sick is the name of the game these days. And it's so insidious because it's not all at once. And, a few people, dropped right away, but a lot of people are not catching on that, there's a reason why we have this uptick in all these turbo cancers and everything else. So let's talk about health. I know that you had mentioned that spring is a really good time.
It
to
is.
focus on your health. Can you talk to us about them?
Yeah. There's so many young people that are they're in really serious trouble health-wise, that it's frightening. And we are now in the midst of a population collapse. Everybody's dying, nobody's getting born. And the ones that are still here don't have the energy, they don't have the, what would I call it? They're not well enough to really, I'm going to say, carry on or to be able to advance. You can barely move your consciousness forward when you don't feel good. And when you get some disease or you have something systemic that goes wrong, it's very frightening. So what we have going right now is just this massive collapse in people's health. And so we really we were not taught, at least I wasn't, maybe they taught it after I left school. That was back in mid-60s. But if they haven't taught it, then nobody knows how food actually works. And right about then, about the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, all the processed fast food stuff started coming online, and it started replacing. I remember when pasteurized homogenized milk became the standard, and then margarine became the standard, and then one thing after the next, canned this and fried that,
and Crisco and
yes, all the oils.
mhm.
And all of the old ways that I grew up with just kind of went out the window, and I thought I was being really modern. And but then I started to collapse, and it just, it was like, oh wow. So one of the things that I think is really important at this point in time is learning, how do you regenerate yourself? How do you heal? And in terms of just where to start, you almost always start with getting rid of parasites. And then after that, you, depending on what you've got going on, if you've got a cancer, you do a purge. If you've got diabetes, whether it's adult onset or not, you do a liver flush, you do a colon sweep, and then you restore the gut, and you do some exercise. All of those things are really, really powerful. And actually, I just did a promotional video today because I'm going to teach Getting Well Naturally this coming weekend. And I'm hoping that, usually I only teach it once a year in December, but I'm hoping that because spring is such a good time to begin making changes, lots of fresh food is more available. You can grow some of your own, which is really powerful. It's really a good time to take that step. And I was talking, I was in a tea, I think it was last week's tea. There were 3 or 4 people who said, oh yeah, I have all the stuff to do the liver flush or the colon sweep, but I'm afraid to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, it isn't going to do your kitchen cupboard or your bathroom shelf any good to sit there on the shelf. And they're easy to do, and they're cheap. And so I have said to people, I don't carry insurance. I never did. It either came through my husband's work when I was married, but the last 15, 17 years, I haven't carried insurance. I do have, what do you call it, Medicare, because I'm old enough now, and it comes with Social Security. It's like $100 a month, but I don't really care because it's only $100 a month, and I wouldn't really want to use it. The only time I've ever used it was the surgery I had 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But if I had not,
wow.
I think it's been 2 years in February.
Wow, it doesn't seem like that long ago. Wow.
I know. Time passes quickly. So
there's a question from Golden Survivor. How do you get rid of parasites? Penny has a book, Getting Well Naturally.
Yeah.
And she's also doing the seminar this weekend. I am just now finishing up the parasite cleanse that Penny recommended to me a few years back. And let me tell you this. I asked Penny about parasites. I think it's been 4 years now. I said, are parasites a thing? Like, should we? And she said, parasites are the number 1 killer.
Yeah.
Humans on this planet. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why have I not? What?
80 to 85% of all disease is caused by parasites.
It's caused by, and surprise, we're not told that.
No.
And so parasites are important. I do a cleanse often, and I am just finishing up a cleanse, and I'm going to talk about myself just for a minute here. I was exposed to the weird yellow. It rhymes with bog, and it starts with F, and I can't say it here on YouTube because, get this, Penny, they deleted one of my beauty channel videos for talking about the bog that starts with an F.
Wow.
Wow. Guess they really don't want us talking about that. But I have
Hey,
just finished a cleanse because I was concerned about what was in that yellow bog.
right.
And it was a rough one. It
Was
was it was very rough. So that tells me
Yeah. A
there
lot of
was
toxins.
something was in that. So doing a parasite cleanse is very, very important. It's you just do it. I would say it's easy. This one was rough for me just because I had
Yeah.
probably a lot of creepy crawlies.
Well, when you have parasites, they absorb all your nutrition. So then you start aging twice as fast. And then they leave all their waste. They leave eggs in your muscles and in your tissues and in your brain. And those egg sacs turn into cysts. And oh my God, it's just a mess.
It's a mess. Yeah.
Yeah, and people do not understand that when your immune system is trying to keep you healthy, it just burns itself out trying to keep up with a parasite. So that is the first thing that you really have to deal with. And Dr. Gonzalez, when I was learning from him, and Dr. Kelly, they both said you can't get anywhere without parasites. And how many people took ivermectin, which is primarily a parasite medicine, and said, oh my gosh, I'm all better. Why? Because it kills the parasites, which allows the immune system then to take care of what the immune system is good at doing. When the immune system is overwhelmed and parasites are rampant, it's a losing battle. I was going to say it's like the fight in Ukraine. They're just going nowhere fast.
Just
So,
another type of parasite over there.
yeah, right. So I think parasites are the very first thing. Then you have to be aware of heavy metals. Heavy metals are in everything because every kind of food that you buy, fresh, canned, baked, fried, frozen, doesn't matter what it is, was raised in a field that was sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. Those
and
three
whatever
chemicals.
and whatever aluminum, barium, strontium, which is falling onto the soil.
Okay, but yes, and and when you are trying to spray, we used to have vineyards. I used to have 2 vineyards, and you had to spray them regularly to keep the pests down and the fungus down and the weeds down. Those chemicals are incredibly volatile and they just poof turn into gases and float away. So, how do you keep those from being overly volatile? You add a whole bunch of heavy metals, and that keeps them from being overly volatile. So, you can at least get it on the field. And then once it's on the field, it does its work. But the heavy metals settle into the soil, and then the plant picks up those metals. So those metals are in everything: lettuce, strawberries, milk, because cows eat the grass. That is often, they don't often spray, but they forage. And that spray, the overspray, ends up in the pasture. It's in everything, potatoes, you name it. So that's peanut butter. If you know how peanut butter was made, you'd probably never eat it again.
I love peanut butter, but I don't eat it anymore. It's scary.
I love it too, and very little. Once in a while, I'll say, I'm going to have some with peanut butter on it, but not very often.
Yeah. So what do you think, Penny, about the connections that some physicians are making between parasites and cancer? There are some physicians saying
true.
that cancer is actually parasites.
Well, one of the things with parasites is that when they leave their larvae in your system, those larvae, sometimes the body will wall that off it's like, I can't deal with this right now, but I'm going to build a hardened wall around it so that what's inside can't get out. Well, what's inside is it continues to grow and develop, and it lays its own eggs right in the sac. The sac then slowly expands, and that has a frequency to it. Those are frequencies that are not compatible with human tissue. Those frequencies interfere with our natural functioning frequencies. And sometimes that's misdiagnosed as cancer. And sometimes it literally causes cancer. And I'm not sure how good they are at being able to tell the difference, but it's a serious problem. And any time that you have an overgrowth of parasites, and that overgrowth has been in position for more than 2 years, then you are most likely to come down with whatever your genetic weakness is, whether that's diabetes, some form of cancer, some kind of kidney failure or liver failure, or severe arthritis. You can't go without nutrition because the whole body degenerates. And then the immune system becomes very weak and cancers proliferate.
Yeah. I recently saw a video that was, those little cameras that they use during a colonoscopy.
Oh, yeah.
And the camera was showing the tumors or the cysts that they said were cancer.
Oh.
And they zoomed up, and those cysts were full of parasites. You could see them swimming.
That's common.
And I thought, oh my gosh, they think that they're filled with cancer. They're filled with parasites.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very common. You cannot have parasites, and that's never been something that was talked about when I was young. It wasn't until I got arthritis and went to visit Gonzalez, and then went to medical school for naturopathic medicine, and talked with Dr. Kelly several times, and they talked about parasites, and they said it's a killer.
What you said is that if they've been in place for more than 2 years, well,
Right.
That's probably 99.9% of the population, at least in the US.
That's
because
right.
we don't talk about parasites here.
No, we don't. We don't. No, it's like a subject that nobody touches. So we don't talk about parasites. We don't talk about low-grade bacterial infections. We don't talk about low-grade viral infections. And those are the things that I see again and again and again when I go looking at somebody to see what's wrong with this body. Why isn't this working well? When you're young, you haven't accumulated as many parasites, and you haven't had as much time for that bacteria to settle in, and the immune system keeps it down but can't take it out all the way without a boost from you. And viruses, the same thing. And there's a whole thing about viruses that people don't really understand, and so we end up with this triple load, and it's a pretty big bump in the road to try to get over when you're trying to heal. And
I don't think you can heal if you don't get rid of the parasites. I think you're just it's a steady decline, because they're not going to sit there stagnant. They're going to keep multiplying.
Right. My very first parasite experience, I was so embarrassed. It was like, oh my gosh. I was probably 25 or 26. And I went to Florida for a week, maybe 10 days in January, and had a spring, a break before I had to go back to school. I was in college. And walking on the beach, laying on the beach, I thought nothing of it. And then I get back home. By about 2 weeks later, I'm itching. I'm having these itching patches of red that would kind of raise up, itch like crazy, and then disappear. And I thought, wow, what's going on? I think I have hives. And then it got worse and worse and worse for the next month until I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would be digging at the inside of my mouth and the back of my throat because it itched like I could not control myself in terms of the itching was just so bad. So finally, I go to the doctor and I said, I'm having these hives and they itch and they're driving me crazy. And he said, oh, you need to see a dermatologist. I go to the dermatologist and he says, has there been a change in the color of your hoop? Such a classic term. And I said, yeah, actually there has. And he said, how did it change? I said, I don't know. It's always black, pitch black, looks like tar. He said, bring me a sample. I'm like, oh my God. So, I take him a sample and he calls me 2 or 3 days later and says, you have terrible parasites. And I had to go on to a systemic parasite medicine. And it was pretty rough. It caused blindness. And I ended up having to go off of it and then go on a really low dose and keep taking it for a couple of months. And the side effects were terrible, but I eventually got rid of it. And that was my very first experience with it. But in that time that I was dealing with it, I don't know if it was the parasites or the medication that caused the blindness, but that scared the jabbers out of me. And I was like, oh my gosh. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't walk. I couldn't see my children. I was really not happy about that. But I learned a lot and thought, oh, thank God that's over. Later, when I went to see Gonzalez, he said everybody has parasites and they're loaded with them, and usually 4 or 5 kinds. Mm-hmm. And I had another whole load of fresh new parasites by the time I went to see him, years later. So that was like 20 years later. So we're not healthy. We don't know how to be healthy. We need to get healthy. We need to start using food to make certain reactions happen in the body. At the most basic level, food either makes you more alkaline or more acid. And so you need to kind of balance what you're eating there. Those are just some basics.
Yeah, it's curious because you hear parasites love sugar.
They
and
do.
You also hear cancer loves sugar.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like, are we talking about something that's one and the same?
A couple of times I have thought, why don't people try to get healthy first before they do the chemo thing? Because a lot of times in the process of doing the detox, the whole problem goes away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there's lots of questions in the chat about how to detox. You can get Penny's book, Getting Well Naturally. It's available on Amazon. I've got a copy, but it's packed up right now. And then she's also doing a seminar this coming weekend.
Yeah.
Getting Well Naturally. And if you're not dealing with parasites,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, you're wasting your time and your money.
Yeah.
So, and your life. Time and money are nothing compared to your life. So, yeah.
And like Penny said, this spring is a good time to get everything together. So when winter comes, you're strong and your immune system is ready to go, and you can fight off whatever the naughty boys are going to be throwing at us.
Yeah.
Whatever they're cooking up in their labs.
Yeah. Oh my. Nothing that we want, that's for sure.
Nothing that we want. All right, let's transition. Let's go into talking a little bit about the current administration in the U.S. and we'll kind of we'll talk about that in the world or culture around the world, and then we'll kind of wrap up with this spiritual side.
Okay. So, my God, where would you like to start in terms of,
Well,
what's happening
I
in the
want
world.
to point out something that you said, and this will start the conversation, that
Okay.
you said in the look-see that I'm not sure everybody caught. They might have, but you said the man playing Putin
Oh,
is
oops.
doing blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, look at that. She said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
And so first of all, it made me laugh. And, just look at a picture of the old Putin and the new Putin. But Penny, I could probably name 15 well-known people that I could throw up one picture and another picture. And Melinda Gates, Bill Gates. Is Trump even really Trump? I mean, is anybody on the world stage, a leading political figure, actually the person that we think? Or is this all just a puppet show?
Most of it is a puppet show, but be aware that they're keeping the puppet show going and the audience entertained while the real people are in the background really working to try to make this whole cabal thing come to an end, to get control of the things that we lost control of. And so there's a whole business. There's a company, I forget, I think we talked about this once before, a company down in, I don't know if it's New Orleans, but somewhere down that way, that hires people who look like world famous figures and then brings them in, dresses them up, pads them if they need padding, tells them they have to go on a diet if they need to go on a diet, gives them higher shoes if they need a few inches, or lower shoes or whatever, and teaches them how to look and sound and talk like the people that they're going to represent. And they're highly paid because their life is on the line. People are going to go out there and they're going to assassinate somebody who looks like Trump. It's not really Trump. And that's an issue. That whole clone business or mask business has created a huge problem, and nobody knows who anybody is anymore. But the real people are in the background. Trump rarely comes out in public. Putin rarely comes out in public. And Xi Jinping, I don't know as much about Xi, and I haven't followed him as much, but he's under pressure, that's for sure. So there's a whole lot of effort being made to get control of our financial system again, so that we own it. It got lost back in, what was it, 1913? So 100 years, 110 years, more than that. We have been, our money and our country has been under the control of somebody else. So, yeah. So when I made that comment, I didn't think about what I actually was saying. That's how I think, and it just came right out. And later when I was editing, I thought, I'm just going to leave that because that's how I think. That's what I saw.
Yeah. So the confusing thing for me is that if Trump actually rarely comes out,
Yeah.
and who that is that we're seeing is not Trump.
One of at least 3 and maybe 6 different Trumps.
Well, what I don't understand, and maybe I'm naive, is
Aren't we all?
that person is so articulate and so quick
Mm-hmm.
and so on brand.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Don't you wonder how and why that happens?
Yes, that's the point. It's like, how could they get somebody that good?
Because they don't hire people that aren't really smart to begin with, that don't have that impersonation skill. And I'm going to say this, I haven't ever said this before. I think they use a little bit of hypnosis. I don't know if people know what can be done with hypnosis, but I have been trained in hypnosis. I know what can be done. You can do a lot. So let me give you an example. Back in the 60s, 1960s, a group of people were hypnotized, each one to be someone different. These were ordinary people who were taking a class in oil painting or something like that. And they were hypnotized to be Michelangelo or to be Raphael or to be one of the famous painters. And they didn't come out of that hypnosis. They were told, okay, do a portrait. And their portraits were stunning. And they were, whoever they were hypnotized to be like, that was the style that they instantly knew how to do and adopted. They did the same thing with some engineering students. We're going to hypnotize you to be somebody who invented what the heck is that machine that processes cotton?
Cotton gin.
Yeah, Eli Whitney,
Yeah.
I think was the guy. And other engineers who had discovered something and then told them to discover or to invent something in the future. And they put those drawings away because the drawings were so complex and based on physics that were so unknown that they couldn't do anything with them. They said, well, we'll get these out in 100 years and see if we can use them and if we can understand what you're talking about. And so that's a taste of what can be done with hypnosis. So I have often had the impression that some of those fellows enter into a trance state and they look and sound and act, what did you call it? They're so on point. They are perfect replicas. Yeah, we don't need to clone people. We just need to teach people how to use consciousness.
So is it your position that Trump is actually, let's say, in Cheyenne Mountain?
I'm not sure where he is.
Running a very sophisticated game. I know last month, it's like I was kicking myself, Penny, all month long that I didn't ask this question.
What?
You said that Trump had been presented with a plan, or a plan was created how to dismantle the network around the planet that's controlling the planet. That's pretty significant. And I didn't say who wrote the plan. Who is it from off-world? Is it on-world?
On-world.
What else can you tell us?
I can only tell you what I've been given intuitively.
Okay.
Okay. JFK wrote the plan.
Oh. Okay.
So it was very sophisticated. It was somebody who really knew and understood the Constitution, all the laws, section this, what, blah, 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 all those fancy terms that they use to refer to a particular law, all sorts of laws, and all sorts of deep thinking. And I don't know that that is actually the case, but that is what I was told. So.
Well, when I look at what's going on with the current administration, what I see is a very measured, deliberate game plan that is not seeking quick results that don't stick.
No.
But lasting results. And all the people screaming, no arrests or da-da-da-da. And I see it with each of the key players in the administration.
Right.
Particularly right now, I see it with RFK.
Yeah.
I see him doing things that are wildly unpopular. But when I step back, I say, he's taken them all down.
Yeah.
And he's going to have them so wrapped up by the time he finally pulls that rope,
Yep, that's right.
that's my perception. What's your perception of what's going on, particularly with the administration in the US? Because that's where you and I are right
I,
now.
I see the same thing, a very slow, steady, legal-based, measured, consciously thoughtful process that is happening, of which basically we don't really understand anything about that process. People are too naive. They are too undereducated. They're not uneducated, but they're undereducated. And there's a lot of nice distractions that get in the way of really following who's really talking truth, who's really putting the goods out there, that kind of thing. And I see that there's been almost no deviation from this very careful plan. And so I continue to watch. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't think that's a good idea. Later, I come back and think, oh, okay, I see where that was going. I see behind that curtain. And so I just keep watching. I have read all of the Q drops from the very beginning. I have them printed out. I've got them in 4 books. And every so often I will happen to come across those in my library and open one and just read it and go, oh yeah, wow. There are things in there that I think that indicate that we have had help from ETs and ET technology. I think Trump was talking just recently about what did he say about our weaponry? And he came as close to giving it away as I've heard him come to that whole topic. And he was talking about the power of our weaponry. And I thought, yeah, we have some weapons that are frightening, and we have those well hidden, and we don't want to use those. And so there's a lot of talk about nuclear stuff. I'm like, nuclear? That is like 3 generations back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Why are they still? I think they're trying to keep people from having the means to hurt others on a big, big scale. And Russia has developed some stuff that they haven't put out as well. I see that we're going to have the US, the Americas, Russia, and China. And the squabbling right now is Russia may end up controlling Europe, and China may end up with Africa. And so it might not be, quite as neat as what I first saw, like ta-dum, 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 Euro-African and Asian-Australian. So there might be some crisscrossing of those lines.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. One of the things that you had talked last month that you saw kind of a steely strength growing within the population.
Right.
And I've seen evidence of that, probably because you've shown a light on it for me, and then I started, focusing on it. But people are just done. They're fed up.
Yep.
They're fed up. I wanted to, I know that one of your daughters is a tax accountant. Yep. It's like, is anybody filing taxes anymore?
I don't know.
And then here's something that's a particular annoyance to me. With the trillions of dollars that we have paid tax dollars over the last, let's just say the last century.
Right.
Our country should look like the very best of Dubai.
Oh.
And I drive down the streets of my town, not in my community. My community's fine, but in my town, and it's tatty, and it's crumbling, and it's depressing looking, and it's old, and the streets are, and the street lights are hanging from these weird, cords. And I'm thinking we should be outraged
I know.
as a nation, given all the taxes that we've been paying all our lives, and we have a nation in that is falling apart.
I know. It's so sad. Oh my.
It's like,
Yeah.
where the hell did all that money go? To travel
Um,
children, to create
no.
weaponry that we never, or technology that we never get to use?
Yeah.
All of it?
Some of that. A lot of it went into the pockets of the big controlling families. But let's go back to that topic of the hardening. That's a very, very important stage in human development. It's a stage in which you grow up, in which you are willing to see what is, say what is, and respond to what is, instead of living as if you're in this magical, illusionary world in which you can say whatever you want, whenever you want, any way that you want, and respond, with whatever kind of attitude, good, bad, or indifferent, that you have from moment to moment. And that is the worst way to live, because you end up triggering all sorts of unwanted reactions around you. So the hardening is what I call becoming the rock. In the development of human consciousness, you have to get to this point where you harden like a rock inside. Nobody goes there except you, not even your favorite lover or your best child or your best friend. Nobody goes there but you. And that rock, that it's a concept that was just severely distorted, because the Christian church took that concept of developing the rock within, and they made it into something. They said to the guy they called St. Peter, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." So they took that whole concept and they changed the meaning of that. They interpreted it differently. Peter, the word Peter means rock. So the goal was always, until you solidify that rock, you cannot build a structure of consciousness or a structure of beliefs that you can trust and that will be secure in every storm, every type of persecution. You have to have that rock. And if you don't have it, then you are open to manipulation. You are open to severe stress and disease. You are open to being cheated, to being lied to looking like a fool, to sounding like a fool, to acting like a fool. And so that rock is what I see happening in our population. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, yes. That means that we are becoming critical thinkers that are willing to be real with a capital R.
Yeah.
What is, not with what we hope or what we think or what we want, and but what is, and responding intelligently to that. So I take that as a very good sign.
I do too. I do too. I have to share with you, Penny. This is. It was funny. I saw a video of a gentleman. He looked to be maybe 40.
Okay.
Good old boy.
Oh.
And he said, "I've had it. I've had it with this government. I've had it with you stealing my money. I've had it with these stupid laws. I've had it with you controlling every part of my life. I've had it up to here. No more. I'm done." And he goes on and on and on. He says, "And if you come for me, I'm telling you what, I am prepared. So you better be prepared as well."
Oh,
He
wow.
was like, and I was like, yes, that's it. That's exactly how I feel.
Oh my gosh. I think a lot of people feel that way. And
Yeah.
I think a day or two ago, I had this moment. I don't know what I was doing, but it was just a moment where all of a sudden I switched from seeing the breakup of the US as something really tragic and sad to having this, oh, thank God, this moment where I realized that that needed to happen in order to prevent the cabal from having control over everything and everybody. And that's the big lesson, I guess, if you will, of the kind of nation state that we have. When you have a big nation state and it's collecting a lot of taxes, you're going to get greedy people trying to get in there who tell you all these lies, whatever you want to hear, and then do what they want when they get in. And then that festers and it gets out of control. So the breakup prevents that from happening or makes that much more difficult. And it was a moment of clarity in which I saw that was part of the answer. It was part of the relief. And I felt bad for Donald Trump because he's trying to save the U.S. for all he's worth. And I know he's just a transition structure, but it's kind of hard to realize that. Well, maybe actually the transition he's doing is really all the undercover work that we need done. So maybe we should not complain, not feel bad for Trump. Maybe, it just has to be
To be
this.
honest with you, I think he's working so hard, but I also think he's having the time of his life.
I think he is too. He loves that kind of thing.
You talk about important work.
Yeah.
That's
right.
important work.
It's very important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to use everything you've got, everything, that's a monumental challenge. And I've had a few moments of those kind of challenges. They are memorable. They are life-changing. And you realize how little challenge we have had over the whole lifetime. Most of us are taught to think that, I just want to be comfortable. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Yeah, there's a saying, I forget who said this. It was in the newspaper some months ago. Most people are like 10-speed bicycles. They have a lot of gears that they never use.
But I do think people are waking up. Penny, I have to tell you, I live in a community and it's called the bubble, living in the bubble. It is the Truman Show on steroids where I live. And I walked and I ran into a neighbor lady that I didn't know. And I said, hey, how are you doing? And she goes, oh, I'm just fine. Living here in the bubble, drinking the Kool-Aid, reading the happy paper. And I just cracked up because people, even when they don't really know the depth of what's going on, they know on some level.
They do.
They're getting it on some level. And I just cracked up.
I know. I would too. That is funny. Oh, my.
Yeah. So,
drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. You had talked in your notes that you sent to me about the perpetual growth that the U.S., it's like more profits, more, the shares have to go up, growth.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how that never works. I mean, you mentioned the only thing that needs continual growth is consciousness.
That's right. That's right. And when you have a need or your business is based on continual growth instead of homeostasis, you have a cancer in your business. When your company, when your country is based on a need for, got to show a bigger profit margin, what are you doing? You are consuming yourself, your resources, your people, and your future. So you can pretend that you have bigger growth and bigger profits, bigger, more powerful, whatever. It doesn't work. It always collapses. So the idea that, and I've said to people, when you get into this cycle that, people need more money to live on because everybody raised their prices, and they raised their prices because they need more growth. They want to show more profit. It's really just a stupid kind of inflation.
Well, it's making a
It's
small number of people very rich while we're running faster and faster on the treadmill.
That's right. Yeah, and when the whole treadmill stops going, that's a problem. So we have to come to grips with this idea of balance, of homeostasis, of what's really practical, and what about the whole evolution of consciousness? We need the whole system, the all life. If I can say it this way, life is a system, and you can come in at the one-dimensional level, the three-dimensional level, the eight-dimensional level, and there's a whole bunch of others. The scientists and the physicists they often say, oh, we have 11 dimensions. And I just laugh. It's like, you fools. Okay. They go on for a very, way more than 11. So when you get to the point that you start looking at life as a system, what it looks like is a recycling system in which you come in, you enjoy whatever your reality is, and then you either die or you evolve to the next level. And often moving to that next level looks like death. It's really not. You're just dropping the denser body, which is 1, 2, or 3 dimensional, for a 4D or 5D body, which is not quite as dense. And beyond the 11 dimensions of, I'll call it material stuff, there's a whole bunch of dimensions of consciousness. And that's, we won't go there, but when you realize that it's a system of evolution and we're not evolving, we're all suffering from arrested development. How do we fix that? You have to have different values and make different choices, hold some real clear ethics, and live your life that way, and expand your consciousness. And then you have some very exciting challenges. Otherwise, it's you just what do they call that?
What are spinning your wheels?
Yeah, you're on the wheel. Okay,
hamster wheel.
Hamster wheel. That's it. I was trying to. What is the name of that animal?
So do you, Penny? Is that kind of what There's some people that say that this is a prison planet, and that you die and they trap you and they say, no, you have to go back and reincarnate again. You need to get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. So who's the they? They saying that are projecting their own choices, and they don't want to take responsibility. There's no prison. It's not you're in your own prison. And that prison is created from your own wants, your desires, your needs, your biases, your refusal to wake up, to listen, to try something different. That's the only reason that you come back here again and again. And until you get past the idea of blaming somebody else for your choices, you're not going anywhere except back around the wheel for another little run.
The thing that there's so many times, Penny, over the years that you have stumped me, because it's like I'm an aged out soccer mom. I'm little Miss Normie that caught on, at some point. And you've said things to me that I'm just like, what? I don't know. It's like trying to imagine a color you've never seen. So it's like the latest I'm stumped is, we're transitioning, and I can feel it in myself that I was walking down the grocery store aisle the other day, and 2 people were talking, and I walked between them, and I instantly knew, I felt the energy field between them, and I instantly knew what was going on. And it wasn't like I was trying to, it just happened. So it's like, I can feel it in myself, because my thought process is shifting and my perceptions of things are shifting. And so it's like, I understand that we're going to a different place. I'm just so confused about how this is going to happen. Like, are we gonna split or something? It's like walking into a room that someone has sort of described, but I have no idea what to expect.
That's a hard question to try to describe. So, first of all, when you start to experience what you experienced in the grocery store, you are moving, you are expanding your consciousness, you're moving up. Okay. When you start to clear and you get really clear, you look around and you say, man, there's a lot of crap happening here. I don't know if I want to be here. and so you start looking to make at least your world a better world. And it's a collective effort that shifts everybody a little bit, especially you. So there are ways that you can move up. So you can die and not come back to this exact frequency range. You go to a higher frequency range where they have people and bodies and technology and life and sunshine and rivers and grass and trees and animals, etc. You can go to a barren planet as well if you just want to focus. Going to a barren planet is a lot like going to Arctic or Antarctica. There's nothing there to distract you, and you end up developing your consciousness. It just is a matter of being there, okay? Because you're reaching for something. We need change in order to know that we exist. I call that our love of drama. So we love drama. So that's one way. Another way is that you can just walk in through a portal. There are portals. They do operate exactly like you might imagine they would. You walk through, you're someplace else. You can go back sometimes, but not always. Okay, depends on the kind of portal, where it's located, how far you went, what it steps into, et cetera, et cetera. You can say, okay, I'm going to create a different world for myself. I'm going to go live in a cave, and I'm just going to meditate and have a quiet life. And when that life is over, you will leave here, but you will have already left here a long time ago. Just your body is still here. Your consciousness typically goes elsewhere. So that's just a small sampling of the different ways that we move to something else. So what typically happens when you get a whole group is that some people in that group start making different choices. And those choices are for what I'll call higher consciousness kinds of ethics. They don't want to hurt animals, or they don't want to destroy Mother Nature, or they don't want technology that is harmful to humans. And so they redesign something, they redesign it, that kind of thing. But there's a whole bunch of people that just aren't there. And very, very slowly, the people who are making these fourth and fifth dimensional choices move forward in a different way. And if they die along the way, they come back to where they left off. They don't go back here.
Okay.
And these people continue to go back where they have been all along. And so it's hard to explain that. I've watched that process many times and thought, how do I explain that smoothly? And it's not easy. So,
well, and I would imagine it's not easy because it involves concepts that we're not familiar with.
Well, that's true. But most people understand the concept of a timeline. And so a lot of people use that. When you're building a new timeline, you're branching off. If you were living in Europe, in Ireland during the potato famine, your family might have said, let's go to America. They have food there. Their potatoes aren't dying. Their potatoes aren't rotting. And so part of the family would move to America and lose track of whatever's happening in Ireland. And the people in America form a whole new way of life, a whole new branch. it's that same kind of concept, but it's on the planet in a different frequency zone.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And what I don't understand about Ireland is why didn't they just go fishing? It's surrounded by the ocean. Go
Oh
fish.
my, yeah, right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
All
my,
right. I think we've touched on almost everything that I
okay.
expected to over, but can we finish up with the personal question now, or is there anything else you wanted to touch on tonight?
No, just that I wanted to encourage people to hang on to their culture. Whatever,
Yes,
the
thank
cultural
you.
clothing, the cultural food, the music, the art, the whatever it is, the way of living, decorating, interacting with the world. Don't let go of your culture. That is such an important point for our future down the road. So that's probably it. In a
But thank you, Penny, for reminding me about that. I had a thought that because and I have traveled a little bit, around the world, and one of the most romantic things about this planet
I agree. I know
is
what you're going to
is
say.
the rich and varied cultures.
Yep.
It's like, oh, you can go to a country and you just step into this whole thing, and the
Yep.
food and the clothes and the way they live, it's just yummy. It's so rich and wonderful. And then I thought, I don't know that there are other reality systems that have as deep and rich of a culture variance than we do on here on Earth.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is such a unique world. And
Mhm.
all of those cultures have been deliberately wiped out by the cabal to
Yeah.
make us all like um, all it's like flattening. There's a flat,
Homogeneous. Yeah.
yeah. So there's no differentiation, and that's a huge loss. And there's a huge, what I'm going to call metaphysical or spiritual part of each culture.
Yeah.
And when you flatten the whole thing, everybody loses spiritually.
Yeah.
So we don't have that. Some groups studying this, back in the day in the 60s when I was um, doing some reading, I think I might have been, I don't know what brought this up, but there's a culture in Southeast Asia, and every morning the children would get up, they would sit down at the breakfast table. They didn't really have a table. They would sit around the campfire, and they would eat their bowls of whatever they were eating. And the parents would ask them, "What did you dream?" And the children were excellent dreamers. So were the parents. And they would talk about the dream, and they would analyze that, and they would know what their future was going to be. Everybody in the family contributed to the future of the family and the future of the village and the future of that whole region. That's a cultural gift. We don't do that. We don't do anything. Instead, we talk about what movie did you see last night? We run on for an hour about the characters and what they said and rehash that whole thing. But it's not helpful to us as conscious beings because we haven't explored what is our own consciousness presenting and why. What is it? What is the gift in that consciousness? So that's part of culture that I just don't want to see get lost. So,
Yeah. And I hope that we're able, as a planet, as a collective, to restore just the incredible cultures around the planet that have been disrupted.
yeah.
It creates such a sense of belonging
Mm-hmm.
for the people in those cultures, and it's such a gift. I know for myself, it's such a gift to walk into a rich, deep culture and experience it. It's like it's
Yeah.
just so wonderful. And then you go into this other culture and you learn so much from them. It's just one thing that we really do well on this planet is culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this shocking disappointment the first time I saw a bunch of African kids wearing t-shirts, shorts, and tennis shoes. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm so sorry.
I
You know?
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, and now I want to ask you a question because I was thinking about it this week.
Oh, okay. All right. Go
And
ahead.
you don't have to answer. You can say no if you don't want to.
Okay.
I know from, having known you for a while now that you came here as a choice
Yeah.
to help teach consciousness.
Yeah.
And one of the carrots for you was the opportunity to join a team that was going to be developing other reality systems. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. Pretty much.
So I just got goosebumps. I guess what I want to
Okay.
know, Penny, is you're decades into it now. What are your thoughts? Are you overall glad you made the decision? Has it been tougher than you thought? What is the big things you've learned? Would you do it again?
Okay. So that's a whole bunch of questions. I'm really glad that I did it. It's been way harder than I expected and way more challenging. And I can see why Mak Umrak asked me to consider doing it. It has developed a side of me that is absolutely intentional. And that, in terms of let's see, what else did you ask in there? Um, repeat the last part of your question because I
Are you
turned
glad
on.
that you did it, and would you do it again?
I would do it again. And the reason is because one of the things that I think is most valuable in what I've learned is I tried to quit a couple of times and bawled my eyes out because I just thought it was too hard and it was going to take too long. And I didn't know how to do any of what they were asking me to do. And over time, I turned that around first with a decision. I heard a song by John Denver. The song was about Buckminster Fuller, "What One Man Can Do" was the name of the song. And I heard that song right at the point that I had tried to back out of the whole mission. It's like, I can't do this. This is impossible. These people are impossible, and
This
on
place
and on.
is crazy.
I know. And then I got effectively not thrown out, but effectively they just turned their back. Like, look, we're not accepting your resignation. And Makumrak turned off his eyes, which is a particular thing that, he's a master. He's a master of the eyes. And I am his student, and I have been learning to see and to use my eyes as a source of power. So anyway, when I heard that song, after crying for 3 days, I thought, okay, fine, I'll do what I can. So I started with that. And over time, what I've learned is that it doesn't matter whether I win, lose, or draw. It doesn't matter. None of that really matters. What matters is that I take a stand and don't quit what I came here to do, and see it through and learn from whatever I have done or not done or succeeded in doing, and that really that has been the big gift for me. This kind of a fierce of course I'm not quitting. I'm going to do what I came here to do. What everybody else does, and this is where the fine difference is up to them.
Yeah.
I have to do what I came here to do. I was bordering on the edge of, I need to be able to do what I do to make them do what I need them to do. No, I don't. I need to be able to teach, to tell, to say, to show, to demonstrate, and they can choose what they want. And they will. And I'm not in control of them, and I don't need or want control of them, because in the higher realms of consciousness, you only want the people who are willing to step up. You kind of want the cream of the crop, who have developed that same, I'm here, period. That says it all. And then they do whatever comes their way, whatever their, whatever task or challenge they take on. And the attitude is, I'm here. And so that's been the way that I've kind of moved from that, I can't do this is too hard, kind of whiny baby thing, to I'll do what I can, to going through the hardening process, to then coming to this place of, okay, I'm just here, and I can enjoy the whole process. I can laugh with people, at people, for people, because of people. I can cry over them. I can watch what they do and go, oh, MG, or just the opposite, like, oh, wow, and enjoy every minute of that. And they can do what they do, and they'll learn something, because we're all learning from one another. And so that's where it's come to at this point.
It was really beautifully said. Thank you.
Okay, it's really been the only choice that makes sense from my point of view.
It just sounds like you've grown your own rock.
Yeah. It's people have said to me, well, don't you feel cold? And I'm like, no, I don't. When you have that rock, it's like you can set that rock on fire in a minute. It's not cold at all. And it frees you to love. And that is, I often say, I love people. I love everything. I'm in love with this place. So where it was kind of a hard transition, it was rough in the beginning. Now it's like, it's a piece of cake. It's a piece of cake. Nobody plays. Nobody has any fun. I do, but often it's all by myself. So I don't care. I mean, it's nice, I can come on and talk with you, and that's kind of like playing. And I enjoy that. And I will mess with people just to get a rise out of them. And then when they react, I'll say, oh, you were paying attention. Son of a gun.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that here on Earth. So are we still here on Earth? Are we still a great source of amusement for the rest of the galaxy?
Not so, well, there is that, yeah. But we are a great source of what I'm going to call, or a great depository. We're not much the source of anything yet, but we are so close to that move, a big move into consciousness. We need that consciousness. We're going to have a test of that consciousness in about 5 years, maybe not even that long. But that really is everybody out there is cheerleading. Come on, come on, come on, come on. You can do this. You're so close. And it's just a decision. It isn't magic that, that is easy. It's a decision, period. So you step up, you say, I'll do what I can. And then you do what you can. And when you can't, you have to recognize, okay, I can't do that right now, but I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to learn. And if I get a second wind, I'll step in and help. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. As we wrap up, is there any final words you want to send people off into the next month with?
I think don't step all over your ability to be excited about what's coming. Don't poo-poo it. Yeah, we've had some really hard revelations. But we're coming to a time of really great excitement. We're not quite there yet, but keep that in your back pocket. Okay?
Yeah.
We're
And
coming into a good future.
and have fun.
Have fun. Yeah, play.
Yeah.
Play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Penny, thank you so much. I love these conversations and I really appreciate you.
Yeah. I really enjoy talking with you. You ask some good stuff. So,
Okay. All right,
okay.
everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We will be back next month. I'm sure there'll be something fun and exciting to talk about.
Okay. Yeah. Enjoy the month, everybody. It's getting warmer. I think get out in the garden, get outside with bare feet. Okay.
Mhm.
Discharge some of that electrical energy. You are an electrical being.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Take care. We'll see you next month.
Okay. Bye bye.